Fellas, today we're going to be going over the most loved and hated fighter in every UFC weight class. Now, weight classes are filled with fighters. Some of them are more on the, the disliked end of things. Some of them, have a massive fan base. So we're going to be going over each weight class and trying to pinpoint the exact fighter which is the most loved and most hated. So let me know your opinion on each of these fighters down below. Starting off with heavyweight. For the most loved, I've gone with Derrick Lewis. Now, I don't really need to explain this. He's one of the funniest guys in and out the octagon. His media days, his celebrations. He just comes down as comes across as like a really funny guy. He doesn't really care about anything. He just goes there, does the job, and he makes it entertaining as well. And he's got a really good fight style as well. He's got he comes to fight, let's put it that way. He's got a really dangerous fighting style as well. One of the hardest hitters in the UFC. I'd say he's probably the hardest hitter in the UFC right now. He just hits like a truck. He's got a really good finishing ability. He's got that danger factor as well, where he could finish a fight from everywhere. And for that reason, I've picked Derrick Lewis for the heavyweight division. I just don't really see how you can dislike the guy unless you're his opponent, to be honest with you. So, yeah, heavyweight, I've gone Derrick Lewis. And for the most hated, I've gone with Jon Jones. Now, Jon Jones does have a big fan base, but that also comes with having a lot of people that dislike you. It's not really hard to justify why people don't like Jon Jones. He's not really a nice person. He's this drug addict. He's taken steroids before. He's had all these, I'm not going to go over the things he's been arrested for, but he's not really, the nicest person, eye pokes as well. Just doesn't really come across as a guy, like a nice civilian, does he? But with that being said, he's achieved a lot and you've got to respect his achievements. But I'm going to say that Jon Jones, and also the fact that he's holding up the heavyweight division instead of fighting people like Aspinall, or before Aspinall fought Pavlovich, he weren't fighting Pavlovich. He's holding up the division to fight Stipe. Didn't vacate the belt when he's injured. I'm just not really liking the behaviour of Jon Jones recently, and obviously the things he's done in the past as well. So for heavyweight, I've gone Lewis and Jones. Light heavyweight, for the most loved, I've gone with Alex Pereira. Yeah, I don't think this needs much explaining. Alex Pereira is he's one of the best additions to the UFC. This whole character that he's brought, the personality of Alex Pereira, the fact that he's got this stoic kind of personality about him, and then obviously his fighting style. Every single Pereira fight's a banger. The ones with Adesanya, the ones with Blachowicz, the one with Yuri Prochazka. He's got so much. He's like, if you match Pereira against pretty much anyone, he will make it an exciting fight, and that's what I love about Pereira. He's got this strong fan base, surrounding him as well. So he's definitely the most loved in the light heavyweight division for me, and I would not mind if he stays champion. Now, for most hated, I've gone with Ankalaev. Now, I don't think Ankalaev's hated. I don't think, he's notoriously disliked massively by MMA fans, but that's simply just because the light heavyweight division, if we're talking about, if we're excluding people like Ion Cutelaba, there's not much people that really are disliked. And the only reason I've gone Ankalaev is because there's still a lot of people that hate him because of the stereotype that he's Dagestani, and people don't want Dagestanis to do well in the UFC, and especially for the fact that he keeps beating our favourite fighters. So for light heavyweight, even though he's not hated, I have picked Magomed Ankalaev just for that reason. But yeah, that's my picks for light heavyweight. Middleweight, the most loved fighter right now, I believe, is Sean Strickland. He's got one of the biggest fan bases in the UFC right now. Ever since he fought Adesanya and beat him, because Adesanya was one of the most hated, which we'll get onto in a second, Sean Strickland's fan base has been massive. Now, he has had some, a lot of controversial takes recently. He is very hypocritical, but as a fighter, he's entertaining to watch. He just walks forward and scraps. That's what he comes to do. He comes to fight, win or lose. He just wants to fight and get a good paycheck for it. He speaks his mind as well. He's really real with people, and I think that's why a lot of these people are liking Strickland. He's got such a big fan base. So I've gone for Strickland for middleweight. And then I've also gone Adesanya for the most hated. Again, I don't think this needs much explanation. He's a bit of a weird person, quite stubborn as well. His fight style isn't that interesting. He's got a very, point fighting style where he just tries to get a decision win no matter what. So that's why I picked Adesanya for middleweight as well. Just really stubborn as well. Even though he's, achieved so much, I've got to respect his achievements. But as a person, I'm not the biggest Adesanya fan, I'm going to be honest. And although I'm not glad he's not the champion anymore, I wouldn't say I miss him as a champion either. So those are my picks for middleweight. Welterweight, the most loved is Stephen Thompson. Yeah, he might actually be the nicest man in the entirety of the UFC roster. I don't think this guy's ever trash-talked anyone. I think the only time he said bad things about anyone is Colby Covington, which doesn't really need much explanation why. He's got such an entertaining, fight style as well. His combinations on the feet are so good to watch. He's in scraps all the time. The fight he had with Kevin Holland was an absolute banger of a fight. I just love when Stephen Thompson fights. He's a nice guy. Even in the vlog series, when you watch him, he's driving his van around, not in a noncy way, but, he's driving driving his van around, whatever he does, he just comes across really nice. So I've gone for Stephen Thompson. And then most hated, I mean, again, this is probably the most obvious one in the video, Ian Gary. He's a dick. He's not a nice person. He doesn't come across as a likable person. Putting, Jeff Neal as Jeff Neal's mugshot on his t-shirt pretty much ruined Neil Magny. Like, I'm not going to act like Neil Magny had this massive fan base, but he turned a lot of the fans against Neil Magny, started creating rumors about him and things like that, kind of ruining how Neil Magny's viewed by the audience. Commenting on Vicente Luque's post, Vicente Luque's post. I don't have a problem with trying to hype a fight up, but the guy just doesn't come across as nice, which is weird because when he started his UFC career, he actually seemed like a pretty decent person. He seemed like I remember people were calling him the nice McGregor, and now here he is, one of the most hated in the UFC. Pulled out of UFC 296 as well. Didn't ruin the card, but that's another thing. And obviously he's got the whole thing going on with his wife as well, which is kind of ironic. So for most hated, I've gone Ian Gary. Yeah, just be yourself, mate. And I'm not trying to act like he's trying to be the next McGregor just because he's Irish, but everything he does just doesn't come across as natural. So for most hated, I've gone Ian Gary. Lightweight. For the most loved, I've gone Oliveira. Yeah, similar to Alex Pereira. Oliveira is one of the most exciting fighters on the roster. He's never in a boring fight. The fight with Chandler, Poirier, Gaethje as well. Even the fight with Islam was an entertaining fight, and obviously the knockout over Beneil Dariush. Charles Oliveira is just an extremely exciting fighter. He's always in a banger. And the thing also another thing that I like about Oliveira is that you never know what's going to happen in the fight. He might get tagged early, he might get caught early, and then he'll end up finishing his opponent in the next round. Or, he could be a betting favourite going into the fight, and then he gets absolutely mauled like he did against Islam. And that's what I like about Oliveira. It's the surprise factor. Nobody knows what he's going to do. And I've said this multiple times before, but when Charles Oliveira wins a fight, it makes us feel like we're winning as well. So for the most loved, I've gone Oliveira. It would be, listen, I don't mind Islam, but I would definitely, it would be good if Oliveira was champion again, just because of how entertaining his run was. And then for most hated, I've gone Conor McGregor. Yeah, similar to John Jones, he's got a massive fan base as McGregor. I mean, he's the biggest star in the UFC, but having a massive fan base also comes with having a bunch of people that hate you. And McGregor is also one of the most disliked fighters in the UFC just because of his behaviour, the alcohol, the way he talks about other fighters, the things he brings up. And I've started getting frustrated with him recently as well. He's kind of teasing us with when he's coming back. First it was meant to be December, then it was UFC 300, then he said he's going to be fighting in July at 185, and now he's hinting towards 300 again against Diaz. The guy just needs to make his mind up. And obviously the massive Dagestani fan base don't like McGregor either. So I've gone with McGregor for most hated at lightweight, and obviously most loved Charles Oliveira. And I think that's a pretty fair thing to say. Featherweight, now for most loved, I've gone with Volkanovski, but you could also go with Max Holloway. I'd say they're both equally liked. Both of them, I don't see how you can hate either of them, but I've gone with Volkanovski. I mean, the guy runs the featherweight division. He's one of the most exciting featherweights to watch. The way he breaks down every opponent, the way he broke down Holloway in their third fight, the Brian Ortega fight, the Korean Zombie fight, the Yair Rodriguez fight, every fight that Volkanovski has, he just absolutely demolishes his opponents and shows that he's levels above them. And for that reason, it's just a really an entertaining fighter. Personality wise, he comes across as a really level-headed, really nice guy as well. Doesn't really seem like the type of guy who's going to be fake with you. No unnecessary trash talk from the guy. And for that reason, Volkanovski is definitely one of the most loved heavy featherweights. And for most hated, even though I don't think he's hated, I don't think we don't hate Ilia Topuria. But I would say he's playing heel in the Volkanovski build-up. He's trying to play heel. He wants to get on the rough side of Volkanovski, I guess. And to be honest, fair play to him, because I think it's time we have some Volkanovski and kind of a rivalry outside of Islam. But yeah, he's already put that he's the champion in his Instagram bio, which would be ironic if he was to lose. But he's really cocky as Ilia Topuria, and a lot of people don't like that. So I guess he's the most hated. But yeah, he's playing heel. And obviously, if you play heel, you're going to have to get the consequences of the fans going against you. But that is my picks for featherweight. Bantamweight. Now, for most loved, I've gone with O'Malley. Now, I wouldn't say that Sean O'Malley's loved. And then I wouldn't just say that, he's liked a lot because of how big his fan base is. I don't know why he's got such a big fan base. But for some reason, a lot of people love him, love his personality. They love him on the mic, even though I think he's dreadful. But he does have a massive fan base behind him. I mean, the cheers that he was getting at UFC 292 when he beat Sterling in the press conference and everything. And also, you've got to admit, whether you like him or not, he's got a really exciting fight style. I put him in top 3 most exciting champions right now. he's either going to an absolute war against a fighter or he's knocking them out. And for that, you've got to respect him for that. So that's why I think O'Malley's liked a lot. And then for disliked, or most hated, I've gone with Henry Cejudo. I can't stand the guy, and I don't think MMA fans can either. He's just cringy. He's annoying, disrespecting whatever fighters. He seems a bit kind of, he doesn't really seem to just, he's a very opinionated guy, but it just seems like whenever he's talking about fighters in a different division, for example, he could be talking about a heavyweight fighter or a middleweight fighter. He doesn't really use a lot of logic. He kind of just uses a lot of emotion. He'll pick fighters to win, or he'll shit on fighters that he doesn't like, or he'll pick fighters that he trains with, and he just comes across as really cringy. And whatever we do, please keep Henry Cejudo away from a press conference. He ruins the press conferences. I can't really stand him, and he's fighting Merab. And to be honest, even though I think he's going to beat Merab, I do hope Merab kind of not humbles him, but I don't know, just does something to him to make him shut up, because he's quite annoying. So that's my picks for bantamweight. And then flyweight, for the most loved, I've gone Brandon Moreno. Yeah, you can't really hate Brandon Moreno at all. He's a really nice guy. Some people think he's quite annoying because of how kind of, childish he is. He is quite childish, and a lot of people just find him really annoying. But, you can find him annoying, but I just don't see how you can hate the guy. He comes to scrapping every fight as well. Again, one of those fighters that are never in a boring fight, whether he's fighting Kai Kara France, Davison Figueiredo, Pantoja. He's coming to scrap and get gold in every fight, or he's at least, going to try and get a title shot from whenever he wins a fight. So I've gone with Brandon Moreno for most loved. Can't really dislike the guy, and he's got, even though he's not English ain't his first language, he tries showing a lot of personality as well, which I like about him. And then for most hated, I've gone with Mohammed Makaev, and this has kind of been in the last 6 months where he's kind of been the most hated. First of all, his fighting style's quite boring. He does get finishes. I'll be honest, he's great when it comes to grappling. He's got some great submission offense and defense, to be honest with you, but he's not the most entertaining to watch. When you take away the submission from the fight, it is just him trying to kind of lay and prey on opponents a lot of the time. It's not the most exciting to watch as a fan. And then on Twitter recently, his personality, he's just been calling out everyone and shitting on everyone for no reason. He's been talking shit about Amir Albazi, Brandon Royval. He's just been calling out a bunch of people in the division that he doesn't really need to be calling out. He's called out Alex Perez as well. Even fighters in completely different divisions as well. So for that reason, I've gone with Mohammed Makaev at flyweight. I think he just is quite unlikable. But yeah, that is my most loved, or in my opinion, the most loved, hated, and hated fighter in every UFC weight class, according to MMA fans, or at least in my opinion anyway. So let me know what you think. Who's your favourite and least favourite fighter? And do you agree with this list? And thank you for watching.